In this highly technological era, where we're theoretically able to connect with anyone instantaneously, one would think that the process of dating and relationships is instrumentally easier compared to previous generations. After all, having more options to choose from is generally considered beneficial, especially when compared to having few or no options. However, it appears that just because more options are available through online mediums, this doesn't imply that they'll be high quality or good options. Furthermore, having too many options naturally introduces the paralysis by analysis phenomenon, where you're unable to make a firm decision due to being overwhelmed with too many appealing prospects. Today's discussion examines the impact of social media and dating apps on the contemporary dating market. A particular focus will be on whether there's a causal relationship between the above-mentioned technologies and dating market quality. Phrased differently, has contemporary dating become more difficult despite this technology? I'll begin by defining important terms and briefly reviewing key findings from several studies. Next, I'll provide commentary on the study's implications, before concluding with possible suggestions on how to navigate the current dating landscape in light of its various hazards. To begin, the first important term is social media. According to Merriam Webster, it's defined as, quote, forms of electronic communication, such as websites for social networking and microblogging, through which users create online communities to share information, ideas, personal messages, and other content, such as videos, end quote. Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, and YouTube, for example, are evidently encapsulated within this definition. Meanwhile, a dating app is defined by PCMag as, quote, an application that enables people to meet for a date and possible lasting relationship. For example, apps such as Bumble, Coffee Meets Bagel, eHarmony, Hinge, Match, OkCupid, Woo+, and Tinder are designed to let people view pictures and profiles of subscribers that the app's algorithm determines are a possible match. If a prospective date is appealing, a round of messages is usually the next step. Dating apps are also available based on religion and age levels, end quote. As this definition reveals, dating apps are essentially a distinct subcategory of social media, the principal difference being that they're fundamentally designed to help users find potential matches and organize dates, whereas more general social media platforms either aren't explicitly designed for this purpose, or they have several other primary uses in addition to providing the means to organize dates. With the important terms defined, on to the findings. The first study explicitly regarding dating apps by Bandinelli and Gandini examines the supposed efficiency of dating apps. Essentially, they're claimed to expedite the dating process by not only assisting users with finding more potential matches, but also more suitable matches. The authors find that instead of easing the process of finding a suitable partner, dating apps merely, quote, reproduce the uncertainty of contemporary romance, end quote. Indeed, the commodified nature of today's dating market, especially online, forces users to act in an entrepreneurial fashion where they construct particular images, or brands, of themselves to attract potential suitors. When constructing their online brand, limited information is provided, and this also occurs with other users. The result in this online market is that users remain uncertain regarding who exactly they're interacting with, or what product they're receiving, if we speak in purely economic terms. Ultimately, the paralysis by analysis phenomenon persists because dating apps paradoxically fail to reduce or eliminate this concern. The next study by Hobbs et al. Examines whether the increasing usage and prominence of dating apps is influencing broader cultural views regarding monogamy, casual and long-term relationships, and romance in general. Contrary to more pessimistic opinions, the authors assert that long-standing cultural views regarding the above-mentioned concepts are more or less intact among the majority of interviewed dating app users. In other words, dating apps don't appear to be causing a broader cultural shift in love and relationship ideals, because most users are still seeking long-term monogamous relationships, rather than short-term flings. For most, the apps are merely a novel method, or tool, to pursue the same objective. a perceivably better means to expand one's dating prospects compared to real-world trial and error, while still maintaining the desire for a long-term monogamous relationship. The last study regarding dating apps is by Vogels and McClain. Here, they examine insights from their July 2022 survey of various American dating app users. The authors list 10 major findings from their data, but findings 6, 7, and 8 are especially notable. Finding 6, quote, "Women who have used online dating platforms in the past year are more likely to feel overwhelmed by the number of messages they get, while men are more likely to feel insecure about a lack of messages." End quote. Finding 7, quote, "When asked why they've turned to dating sites or apps in the past year, 44% of users say a major reason was to meet a long-term partner, and 40% say a major reason was to date casually. Smaller shares say a major reason was to have casual sex, 24%, or make new friends, 22%, end quote. Lastly, finding 8, quote, "About 4 in 10 US adults overall, 42%, say online dating has made the search for a long-term partner easier. Far fewer, 22%, say it has made the search for a long-term partner or spouse harder. About a third, 32%, say it has made no difference." End quote. All three above-mentioned findings are certainly illuminating, because they either reiterate conclusions reached by other reference studies, or they provide additional knowledge regarding the true impact of dating apps. Dating apps are one matter, but what about social media in general? The first study addressing social media-specific impacts is an honors thesis by Kostiw. Here, she explores the valid concern of social media's perceivably negative effect on relationship trust and satisfaction. To test her hypotheses, she conducts and analyzes results from a survey of college-age students. One notable finding was the appearance of a significant correlation between social media usage and lower trust levels. Put differently, respondents who believed social media detrimentally impacted the level of trust in their relationship were more likely to report relationship dissatisfaction. Another notable finding indicates that there appears to be no significant correlation between frequent social media usage and relationship satisfaction. Even so, the data also indicated that frequent social media use does appear to be correlated with a higher likelihood of wanting to track the location of one's partner, at least for some platforms like TikTok. In a similar vein, Quiroz and Mickelson conducted their own survey to see if there's a correlation between social media use and relationship satisfaction. An important element of their study is the distinction between passive and active social media use. Passive use entails simple browsing or stalking of other people's content. Meanwhile, active use involves posting content, commenting, and interacting with other users. The authors find that there appears to be a robust negative relationship between high levels of passive social media use and relationship satisfaction, especially among women. Furthermore, high active social media use appears to not have any impact on relationship satisfaction for both men and women. The last article on social media by Jarai corroborates the findings to some degree of Quiroz and Mickelson and Kostiw. New insights by Jarai indicate that there appears to be a relationship between social media usage and relationship dissatisfaction. Additionally, there's growing evidence for social media causing or leading to infidelity and other related behaviors. One final article that arose after I concluded my initial research for today's discussion comes from the Daily Mail. In the article, it discusses the mixed reaction regarding Tinder's recent introduction of a height preference feature that enables users to screen other profiles based on minimum versus maximum heights. If Tinder is trying to rid itself of its reputation for being extremely shallow and superficial, well, they certainly are failing at this objective. Then again, perhaps that has always been the case, and this latest move simply confirms what we already know. With the background research outlined, I'll now provide my commentary regarding the implications. Regarding dating apps, their implications are certainly multifaceted, with each component working both in isolation and in tandem. I'll examine them individually before making an overall assessment. The first negative consequence of dating apps is exacerbation of the paralysis by analysis phenomenon. Put differently, The introduction of ostensibly unlimited dating prospects exacerbates indecision and reluctance to commit to one viable option at the expense of all others. One supposed benefit of dating apps, as noted by some above-mentioned studies and the companies themselves, is that they provide users with the ability to exponentially expand their dating prospects. No longer are users hindered by geographical area and lack of time to socialize, for example, because dating apps are supposed to alleviate both concerns. However, the evident problem with expanding one's prospects so dramatically is that even if someone manages to find a suitable match or two, the real question is whether they'll choose to follow through with those matches. After all, the thought will always be in the back of their mind that says, yeah, this person is appealing, but perhaps if I wait a bit longer, I'll find someone even better. Now, this thought existed well before the invention of dating apps, but this technology has certainly increased its prevalence by making it commonplace, or even expected, among many. It's easy to understand how being presented with seemingly unlimited potential prospects negatively impacts one's ability to effectively choose. Furthermore, there's always going to be the potential that someone better is out there, but this idealistic notion must be tempered with pragmatism. You can't afford to swipe left incessantly and always look for a more perfect person that, for all intents and purposes, might not exist if your standards are unrealistic. Indeed, we're seeing this phenomenon occur among both sexes where, as a direct consequence of dating apps, they're ignoring more or less suitable matches because they're still seeking that perfect person who is supposedly still out there and waiting to be found. Paralysis by analysis, and thus, dating apps aren't making it easier to find love. Instead, they're exacerbating the difficulty of choosing and committing to just one viable option. The second negative consequence of dating apps is perpetuating superficiality and commodification of individuals within the dating market. Now, the fact that dating apps possess this implication has been apparent since their inception. Ultimately, it stems from the inherent manner in which they operate. Users carefully construct their profile, with enhanced photos, and not necessarily true brief biographies, in order to present a certain image of themselves to others. Other users either find their profile attractive by swiping right, or unappealing by swiping left. In turn, they do the same for other profiles. This process fundamentally embodies superficiality where users are treated as commodities, or products, in the dating market because physical appearance is valued first and foremost. After physical appearance is accounted for, only then does some element of character or personality come into the picture. As mentioned, this fact isn't surprising since dating apps have been and will continue to be used by many to engage in casual sex and dating. Additionally, the facilitation and perpetuation of hookup culture will likely become intensified with Tinder's recent introduction of a height filter feature. Now, you might object and say, well, this certainly appears to be a detrimental consequence, but if one doesn't engage in hookup culture, then the superficial aspect and commodification of others isn't as concerning. The problem with this thinking is that the above-mentioned consequence isn't limited to this subsection of the dating market. Dating apps' perpetuation of superficiality and commodification of individuals bleeds into other areas. They subconsciously impact individuals more than initially realized, because the algorithms play a significant role in shaping their perception of others, not just online, but also in the real world. Physical appearance initially draws people together, and this was true even before dating apps arrived. However, the problem is when physical appearance is prized above all else. Looks fade given enough time, and what remains is one's character, or the utter lack thereof. Ultimately, dating apps appear to have cultivated a culture of shallow relationships built almost entirely on physical appearance and/or lust. Additionally, it doesn't matter if the relationship falls apart, because you can, theoretically, find a replacement at the drop of a hat, or a swipe to the left, in this case. This comment leads me to the final detrimental impact of dating apps that involves relationship quality, infidelity, and commitment issues. As mentioned earlier, relationship quality is negatively affected because dating apps prioritize physical appearance. Relationships that commence from these platforms are more likely to rest on volatile foundations, physical attraction and/or lust, without regard for more robust indicators such as personality, compatibility, interests, or life goals. Not to say that this phenomenon doesn't occur in the absence of dating apps, but rather, not to the same degree, because they significantly increase this likelihood due to their fundamental operation. The next element, infidelity and commitment issues, naturally follows from this conclusion. Even if two individuals match and successfully embark on a relationship, dating apps appear to heighten the risk of infidelity and commitment issues. Now, there's always the worry of cheating no matter how a relationship begins. You'd certainly expect that your significant other wouldn't engage in this behavior, and vice versa. A certain degree of trust is required for a relationship to persist, but with the introduction of dating apps, and social media in general, it's clear that for some people, the allure of an affair is too great to ignore. Naturally, this worry has increased among those in relationships because dating apps open the door to many potential options, or potential replacements, if we think in more morbid terms. It's no surprise that the phenomenon of cheating and lack of commitment to one person has increased following the advent of these applications. Indeed, they provide more clandestine ways to hide affairs and introduce a perceivably easier exit strategy once a relationship ends compared to previous decades. If the relationship ends, one or both parties can say, "Oh well, it shouldn't be hard for me to find a suitable replacement." This perception, largely resulting from the dating culture fashioned by dating apps, inevitably perpetuates the lack of commitment cycle where relationships aren't built to last. Furthermore, many will continue to shop around and not commit to a suitable match until it's too late, thereby ending up alone and suffering from a fate that they desperately wish to avoid in the first place. In terms of overall dating market impact, the verdict isn't atrocious, but it certainly isn't good either. Perhaps dating apps haven't completely ruined the dating market, but they've certainly influenced the thoughts and behaviors of many who participate, and not for the better. Facilitation and aggravation of superficial relationships, continual commodification of individuals, love, and romance, increasing the prevalence of cheating/infidelity, and worsening paralysis by analysis and commitment issues are direct consequences of dating apps. With all that said, what about social media in general? Does this technology have similar or distinct consequences? Although social media in general is distinct from dating apps, it has had comparable effects on the dating market and individual attitudes. Platforms such as Facebook and Instagram aren't inherently utilized for dating because they have several other main functions, i.e., creating content, organizing events, sharing information, etc. Although dating and expanding one's dating prospects isn't their primary purpose, these applications have been and will continue to be used by many for this purpose. More information can be provided, at least prior to the messaging phase, because users have more opportunities and freedom to upload detailed pictures, videos, comments, and biographies compared to dating apps. Nevertheless, Facebook, Instagram, and more recently, TikTok, are just as superficial. Users meticulously craft the image of themselves that they want to present to the world, omitting particular facts and elements of their life in order to impress others. This process fundamentally embodies attention-seeking behavior, a phenomenon that can be detrimental when taken to the extreme. Regarding social media and dating, I found it surprising in one of the studies that active social media use doesn't appear to be correlated with relationship dissatisfaction. Instead, passive social media use, just scrolling or browsing, was correlated with higher relationship dissatisfaction. The latter finding isn't surprising, but I'm skeptical that there's no apparent correlation between active social media use and relationship dissatisfaction. Here's my rationale for being skeptical. Theoretically, if someone is truly satisfied with their relationship, they wouldn't need to consistently prove this fact to others by posting on a regular basis. Additionally, if they were truly satisfied, they wouldn't have to seek external validation from others, at least not to such a great extent. The validation or attention they receive from their significant other should, at least in principle, be enough to satisfy them. From my perspective, it seems more likely that individuals who actively use social media on a regular basis aren't inherently satisfied with their life, their relationships, and who they are, or perhaps all three. Furthermore, it seems reasonable to conclude that constantly seeking attention from others can and will eventually cause a relationship to end, especially once this person becomes bored or dissatisfied with their partner. On the flip side, if the other person doesn't post very often, it's quite likely that they'll become concerned with their partner's constant attention-seeking behavior and question why they can't be satisfied with the attention they provide. Indeed, and this dynamic appears to be occurring in many contemporary relationships, especially those defined in part by social media reliance. Ultimately, I am skeptical of claims that social media has no apparent impact on relationship quality, infidelity, cheating, superficiality, and/or commitment issues, given how it's capable of functioning as a more advanced dating app. Social media is likely to exacerbate these behaviors and influence perceptions that spill over into dating app culture. The influence of one platform impacts another, and vice versa. Trends that appear in one are likely to appear in the other, given enough time. With the implications outlined, I'll now conclude with some final thoughts and recommendations. Given the above-mentioned implications, how should you proceed? Where do you go from here? Undoubtedly, it's easy to become frustrated and pessimistic regarding the dating market, or dating apps in particular, as others have. You don't have to look far to see other commentators making remarks like, quote, "It's over for short men," end quote, or the, quote, "dating market is cooked," end quote. While it's vital to be cognizant of ongoing circumstances, taking the nihilistic approach won't do you any good, especially if you're still seeking a relationship. Although social media and dating apps have had a significant influence, not everyone is being corrupted by these technologies. Robust relationships are still forming, people are still getting married, and children are still being born. Indeed, as more time passes, I continue to see further examples of these facts in my life. Friends and acquaintances building strong relationships, getting married, and having children. All this despite the fact that we're living in a time with an ostensibly cooked dating market. Clearly, this isn't the case, at least not to the extent so often claimed by various online commenters. What seems to occur, which is arguably true no matter the era, is that individual negative circumstances and examples are given more prominence, magnifying them beyond their true extent so they appear widespread, when in reality, they're isolated incidents not indicative of a widespread pattern. Indeed, showing brief clips of the most extreme cases of detrimental behavior in the dating market to many people, as is often the case these days, creates the appearance of extreme becoming mainstream. Are these cases representative, or are they outliers that aren't truly representative of the general population? Regardless, the best way to proceed is with guarded optimism, or simple pragmatism, where you keep an open mind, but you also know when to walk away. Acknowledge that social media and dating apps have had an overall negative effect on the dating market, but also realize that it hasn't been destroyed beyond repair. There are still good people out there, even if it has become more arduous to find them. Perhaps the reason why these people are so difficult to find is because you're looking in the wrong locations. For example, it's likely that someone truly worth obtaining, a real diamond in the rough, so to speak, doesn't use dating apps and has a limited social media presence. If you're more reliant on these technologies, then it naturally follows that you'll have a tougher time finding such a person. Continue to conduct your business and venture out into the real world, but avoid the pitfall of thinking that it's impossible to find someone of value in this day and age. Given the vainglorious nature of dating apps, you're better off forsaking them, or at least not relying on them heavily if you're looking for a committed long-term relationship. Not to say that it's impossible to find someone of value on these platforms, but it's also not guaranteed either, despite what the platforms might say. Instead, your efforts should be placed elsewhere, namely, expanding your prospect network by attending social events in the real world, whilst also using more traditional forms of social media to perform the same objective. Personally, I haven't used dating apps, and I don't plan on doing so anytime soon. When I've had dating success, it came about from socializing in the real world, building off initial interactions through subsequent digital communication, i.e., Instagram digital messages, DMs, and arranging further in-person socialization opportunities. Social media is a tool, and like any tool, it can either help or hinder your progress depending on how it's used. Perhaps in this context, the best piece of advice really is to go outside and touch grass. Indeed, It certainly increases the probability of interacting with others in more meaningful ways compared to online, where various masks and filters make it all too easy to hide one's imperfections. Finally, despite all the noise, it should be remembered that opportunities come and go. One chapter must end before another can begin. Choose a path, otherwise you run the risk of the path being chosen for you. In terms of dating, this means committing to one person once you've fully considered all prospects. If the relationship works out in the long run, great, but if not, then don't become too melancholic. If it is meant to be, it will be, so let it be, as the saying goes. Indeed, perhaps this is what technology can't fully emulate or capture, the process of letting circumstances occur naturally. Since technology tends to facilitate superficial relationships, it's unsurprisingly difficult to find something real or authentic on these platforms. Whereas in the real world, you're forced to be authentic if you want to find and maintain something valuable, something worth all the effort. Thank you for taking the time to watch. If you enjoyed today's video, please consider subscribing.